Prime Minister of Ireland.
Presidents, co-chairs, may I begin by thanking France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening us today, and I commend them for their leadership on this most vital of issues. Those of us gathered here know that the only viable option to deliver a peaceful future for Israel and for Palestine is a two-state solution. At this most critical juncture, we must continue to put our full political weight behind it. The situation on the ground has rarely looked so bleak. A just and lasting peace seems further away than it ever has. But in our own peace process in Northern Ireland, to a conflict of 24 years duration, we recognised that even in the darkest of days, we had a duty as leaders to keep the flame of hope alive and to keep talking. The immense suffering of the Palestinian population in Gaza over the past 2 years has been an affront to the world. It has horrified people around the world, nowhere more than in Ireland, where people have been moved to sorrow and to anger. What happened to Israel on the 7th of October was a horrific and brutal attack on an innocent civilian population, and Hamas must be held to account for its actions. It was an appalling act of crime, war crime. But it cannot justify what has happened since. More than 65,000 people killed in Gaza. Horrifically, more than 20,000 of them children. The use of food as a weapon of war, with scarcity becoming hunger, becoming famine. Hospitals attacked, homes and schools destroyed, thousands of years of culture wiped out. People shot as they desperately seek food for their families. Doctors, aid workers, journalists targeted and killed. We have reached a point where what has been credibly described as a genocide is being carried out in front of the eyes of the world. It would be easy to just despair, but we must not. Gaza must move us to action. And there are still humanitarian workers, medics, journalists determined to do their best for the people of Gaza and for Palestine. They are doing so with the most extraordinary courage and without regard to their own safety. To honour them and the Palestinian people, it is right that we as political leaders play our part too. And the only way to end the appalling cycle of violence is to forge a political path. And the only credible destination is a two-state solution, with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security. And that is why Ireland last year, with Spain, Norway and Slovenia, recognised the state of Palestine. I commend those who have taken the decision to recognise the state of Palestine this week, and I strongly urge those who have yet to do so to give it serious consideration. We know that there are people, including in the Israeli government, who are working daily to make that outcome impossible. In addition to the destruction of Gaza, settlements are expanding every day, and illegal settlers in the West Bank are increasingly emboldened and militant. If we do not move now to protect the two-state solution, if we do not work to build a process through which it can be achieved, there may never be another opportunity. That must not be our legacy to future generations. Ireland is ready to play its part, and I look forward to our continuing steadfast cooperation. Thank you very much indeed.
I thank His Excellency for his statement, and I now give the floor to the Prime Minister of Belgium.
Dear Secretary General, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Belgium has always defended the two-state solution and is today reaffirming once again this position by having joined the co-signatories of the New York Declaration. Only this solution will allow Israelis and Palestinians to live side by side in peace and security. To support this aspiration, since the Oslo agreements, Belgium has provided bilateral funding and technical assistance to the Palestinians for a total amount of around 600 million euros. We also remain committed to meeting the acute humanitarian needs in Gaza. We have recently airdropped over 190 tons of humanitarian supplies to address the most acute needs. The Belgian government has recently decided to add another 12.5 million euros to our humanitarian budget for Gaza, in addition to what has already been disbursed. Full and free access to Gaza for providing massive humanitarian aid is an urgent need, as the famine has been officially recognized by the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, the resumption of settlement activities in the West Bank, particularly the E1 project, the military occupation aimed at the full occupation of Gaza, as well as the indescribable humanitarian crisis, all raise fears today that, in the absence of an international response confirming the need to keep the prospect of a Palestinian state alive, peaceful and sustainable coexistence in two states may no longer be possible. The recent declarations of a number of Israeli ministers, including the Prime Minister himself, that no state of Palestine will ever exist, is an additional reason for reaffirming the right and the need of the Palestinians having their own state. Therefore, Belgium is giving out a strong political and diplomatic signal to the world today by joining the group of countries that announces the recognition of the State of Palestine in the margin of this high-level week of the United Nations General Assembly. We are thus joining the initiative of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as advocated in the resolution adopted by the Belgian Parliament. Through this initiative, we continue to support international law, particularly the right to self-determination of peoples. Let me be clear, however, this step cannot be a reward for Hamas. Conscious of the trauma suffered after the Hamas terrorist attack on October 7, 2023, Belgium will proceed to the legal recognition of the State of Palestine once all hostages have been released and all terrorist organizations, such as Hamas, have been removed from the governance of Palestine. The effective conduct of diplomatic relations with the new State of Palestine, including the opening of a Belgian embassy and the conclusion of international agreements, will be carried out once the objectives of the New York Declaration have been achieved, notably the full demilitarization of Hamas and subsequent the renewal of governments based on presidential and parliamentary elections, giving the Palestinians a democratic, strengthened and renewed authority. All these steps are intended to guarantee the security of both the Israeli and Palestinian population. At the same time, we also strongly call for the recognition of the State of Israel by all Arab countries. Let us be clear, the two-state solution is not dead. It is bruised, but it can be revived, and it must be for the sake of both peoples. I thank you.
We thank His Excellency, and I now give the floor to His Excellency Prime Minister of Norway.
Excellencies, thank you, France and Saudi Arabia, for convening us together in New York today. I would also like to salute the President of the State of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas. I find it an illustration of deep injustice that he was denied entry to be with us today. But his address was reasonable and dignified. Thank you, Mr. President. 32 years ago, the first Oslo Accords were signed, forever creating an association between my country, my capital, and a vision for peace in the Middle East. Ever since, we have worked for one end: peace, security, and dignity for the Palestinians and the Israelis, living side by side in two sovereign states, enjoying the rights and obligations that follow from the Charter of the United Nations. I have followed this closely, now as Prime Minister, previously as Foreign Minister, and also as Secretary General of the Norwegian Red Cross. Today's conference marks a historical high point of international support for and recognition of the state of Palestine. At the same time, the situation on the ground is perhaps the furthest we have been from its realization. The situation in Gaza is catastrophic. The governance structures created by the Oslo Accords are driven to the verge of collapse, and the encroachment of Palestinian territory continues. Yes, it is complex, but it is true. The two-state solution is the only credible path to peace and security for both Israelis and Palestinians. An occupying power cannot have a veto over what happens in a territory it is unlawfully occupying. The Palestinian people have the right to self-determination, as do the Israeli people. Last year, therefore, Norway, along with Spain and Ireland and Slovenia, recognized the state of Palestine. We welcome the recognitions announced this week and last year and today. Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la décision.
And thank you, Mr. President, for France's decision.
The urgent need to stop the violence, improve access to humanitarian assistance, release the hostages, and pave the way for a lasting solution based on the fundamental principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Only last week, this Assembly approved a roadmap of concrete actions to this end, and in July, a broad majority voted the New York Declaration. But friends, there will be no state of Palestine or a body to govern Gaza the day after without functioning Palestinian authorities. Preserving and reforming the institutions that we together have invested in and helped build over the last 3 decades is critical. It is critical for the well-being of the Palestinian population and its desperate hour. And it is critical for peace and security also for Israel. The alternative is chaos or worse. It is the strongest rejection we can come up with of Hamas and terrorism to recognize a Palestinian state under the Charter of the United Nations. Norway will continue to support the Palestinian government, including through emergency funds we are mobilizing with other donors. And we continue to call on Israel to release the tax revenues owed to Palestine. These revenues are desperately needed to fund schools, hospitals, and the police. So, friends, this is the time to stand up and be counted. As defenders of human dignity and human rights, as defenders of a world with firm laws and rules, as defenders of peaceful resolutions. For 80 years, the UN has been a family of nations. The state of Palestine belongs to this family. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency, and I now give the floor to His Excellency Prime Minister of Luxembourg.
Monsieur le Président, Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in history when the cause of peace demands both moral clarity and political courage. 8 years ago was such a moment. The founding of the United Nations was an act of courage, guided by a clear vision of a world based on universal values and principles of peace, freedom, and justice. Today, again, is such a moment in history. Luxembourg stands here today as a partner to all those who believe that diplomacy still matters, that it can make a difference. We want to remain true to their promise made 8 years ago. Luxembourg stands here today as a partner for peace. We remain convinced that a two-state solution remains the only viable way forward for a lasting peace. Our goal is a safe and secure state of Israel living side by side with a safe and secure state of Palestine. Rarely has the prospect of a two-state solution felt more distant than today, and yet never has the international will to achieve it been more unified. When doubts grow, we must face them with the certainty of hope. That is why I solemnly declare that as of today, Luxembourg formally recognizes the state of Palestine. Recognition is not the end of a process. It is the beginning of a renewed commitment to hope, a commitment to diplomacy, to dialogue, to coexistence, and a two-state solution. To the idea, fragile but still possible, that peace can prevail. We take this step fully aware of its great symbolic weight. It is our contribution to a political process, one that we hope will revive the prospect of a negotiated two-state solution, grounded in the legitimate aspirations of both Palestinians and Israelis. It is fully aligned with the principles that have guided Luxembourg's foreign policy since 1945. Respect for international law, the promotion of a rules-based order, and the values enshrined in the UN Charter. And let me be clear, this is not a decision against Israel or its people, a people with which my country shares strong historic ties, and whose right to live in peace and security we have been fully upholding since 1948. Luxembourg has been and will remain a friend of the people of Israel and Jews around the world. And with the same clarity, let me say that this is not a decision to reward violence or endorse any actor who undermines peace. Luxembourg condemns, in the strongest possible terms, the atrocities of October 7, and we call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. And in line with the New York Declaration, we expect the Palestinian leadership to live up to the responsibilities of statehood. The road ahead will not be easy. We do not claim this recognition alone will change the course of the conflict, but we hope it will contribute to restoring momentum to the political horizon that has been lost. Peace is not simply declared. Real peace, lasting peace, is built step by step, brick upon brick. Let this recognition be a message to grieving families, to hopeful children, and to all those who have not yet given up. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency the Prime Minister and give the floor to the Prime Minister of Malta.
Well done. Thank you. Well done. Excellencies, dear friends, let me begin by stating clearly and unequivocally that the Republic of Malta is proud to confirm our official recognition of Palestinian statehood. We do so as a demonstration of our concrete commitment to a genuine and peaceful two-state solution, as the only solution that will secure the future of both peoples. Malta is equally unequivocal in its support for the right of Israel to exist alongside a democratic Palestinian state. In making this commitment, I am acutely aware of how events have unfolded since the appalling Hamas attacks of October the 7th. They were the despicable work of a terrorist organization which must have no place in the emerging Palestinian state. Since then, Malta has been unwavering in calling for the unconditional release of all the remaining hostages. No ifs, no buts. The hostages must come home now. Malta adds once again its voice to those demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire. The fighting must stop now. I am also aware of the opinion that recognizing the state of Palestine somehow amounts to a victory for Hamas. A two-state solution, however, is the worst possible outcome for Hamas. It is not what they want to see. They want to see Israel wiped off the map. Malta and our allies want to see Hamas wiped out. We must never forget that Hamas openly and violently opposed all the previous efforts at peace. If Palestinians can see a peaceful and realistic road to nationhood and self-determination, it fatally undermines the siren cries of Hamas. It offers the only hope that there is an alternative to conflict. I ask, what is the other alternative? What is the future that the hotheads on both sides envisage? A conflict without end? Israel under constant attack? A region mired in instability? That is an outcome nobody should want. Instead, with the right to recognition come huge responsibilities for the Palestinian leadership. There must be absolute adherence from the outset to non-violence and mutual recognition. Hamas must have no role in any shape or form in the future government of Palestine. Malta supports the Palestinians' authority, one state, one government, one law, one gun approach, and the need for urgent, free, and fair elections. Equally, there are urgent responsibilities for the Israeli government. The attacks on civilians and infrastructure must stop immediately. The illegal settler encroachment and accompanying violence in the West Bank must also stop immediately. And unhindered aid under genuine international auspices must be allowed to flow immediately. Starvation is being suffered in Gaza, and the deaths of hungry civilians trying to access the pitiful trickle of food aid being allowed in cannot be allowed to go on. I am not ashamed to admit that I cried after recently visiting the young children we brought over to Malta from Gaza to give them the best medical care our island has to offer and the required prosthesis. These innocent children have had their limbs and the best part of their life stolen away from them. They have also lost their parents, and they have been caused irreparable harm. But we will not allow their hope for a better future to be stolen away from them, and we will protect them. Ibrahim, I promised you that, and we will stick to our word. What is happening is morally and legally very wrong, and we have a duty on all of us to act. We know that the path to a functioning, free, and fair two-state solution is a long and also hard one. We know the dangers that lie along that path, but we also know the greater dangers that arise from saying nothing can be done, that the dream has died. We cannot, and we will not remain silent or complacent. The depth of the current tragedy must be
The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I thank His Excellency for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the EU.
Monsieur le Président, Altesse Royale,
President, Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, I would like to thank the initiative of France and Saudi Arabia, the initiative being to gather us at a critical juncture for peace in the Middle East. The region has known far too many wars, far too much violence and terrorism, too many deaths. Today in Gaza, we are facing a humanitarian catastrophe. We see families broken, famine used as a weapon of war. This disaster must end. The European Union once again calls for an immediate ceasefire, unfettered humanitarian access, and an end to insecurity. We want the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. We condemn the military offensive underway in Gaza. We also firmly condemn the violent escalation in the West Bank. We call on Israel to put an end to the aforementioned operations, to stop the illegal settlements. Excellencies, today, thanks to the impetus provided by this conference, the state of Palestine has been recognized by the majority of EU member states. Nonetheless, we must be clear-eyed about the day after. There is no room for Hamas, for terrorism. There is no room for illegal settlements. There's no room for deaths of innocent civilians. Nowhere, neither in Gaza nor in the West Bank, nor in East Jerusalem, nor in Israel. There's only one way forward, and that's the two-state solution. The State of Israel, secure and recognized by all members of this General Assembly, and the State of Palestine, democratic, independent, viable. Two states living side by side in peace. The time for peace has come, and we're duty-bound to live up to the times we face. I thank you.
Monsieur le Président,
President,
ladies and gentlemen, when the night is darkest, we must hold fast to our compass. And our compass is the two-state solution. October 7th has opened one of the darkest chapters in history. We all agree that the tragedy in Gaza must stop right now and all hostages released. But ending the war might not be enough if there is no pathway to peace, if the prospect of two states is no longer viable. And as we speak, the two-state solution is being undermined, and this cannot be, because the only realistic peace plan is based on two states, with a secure Israel, a viable Palestinian state, and the scourge of Hamas removed. Since the beginning of this war, Europe has been the lifeline of the Palestinian Authority. We have put together an unmatched and unprecedented financial package of 1.6 billion euros. But as the very survival of the Palestinian Authority is at stake, we must all do more. And this is why we will set up a Palestine donor group. Any future Palestinian state must be viable, also from the economic point of view. And this can be achieved also with the support of the Palestinians' neighbors. We Europeans will set up a dedicated instrument for Gaza's reconstruction in coordination with other donors' efforts. Gaza must be rebuilt, the Palestinian economy must be relaunched, and I invite all of you to join in the effort to make this happen. Of course, in the end, only the Israelis and the Palestinians can agree on the way forward. But the international community has so much to contribute. We can facilitate, we can rebuild, but most importantly, we can keep hope alive. Thank you very much.
I thank you for your statements. Given the limited remaining time, we ask the Excellencies to limit their statements to 2 minutes, after which the microphones will be cut off. I give the floor now to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy.
President Macron, Minister Faisal, this conference takes place at a crucial time. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Our position is clear. Italy is against the occupation of Gaza Strip and against any idea of displacement of its population. Italy condemned also the recent attack against Doha, but we encourage Doha to continue in the crucial effort to mediate together with Egypt and the United States to reach a ceasefire. We deplore the decision of the Israel government to expand settlements in the West Bank. We also condemn in the strongest term, the recent terrorist attack carried by Hamas against the Israeli civilian population in Jerusalem. We are fully convinced that a path to peace is still possible. Like Pope Leo said, we cannot abandon the hope for peace. Italy strongly supports the dream of the Palestinian people to have a state. We will continue to support the Palestinian Authority in its reform. We will work hard for two-state solutions with the peaceful coexistence of the Palestinians and Israelis. It is the only solution to ensure a future of peace and prosperity in the Middle East. For this goal, it's crucial to reach the ceasefire, the liberation of the hostages, and the assumption of full humanitarian access. From the beginning of the conflict, Italy provided thousands of tons of aid to the Palestinian population. We also organized medical evacuation to cure in Italy hundreds of Palestinian children. We know this is not enough. We must interrupt the cycle of violence. The message from New York is clear. Israel, stop bombing. Hamas, freedom immediately for the hostages. We must focus on the day after. It should meet
The microphone has been cut off.
Minister. I thank His Excellency. وأعطي الكلمة الآن إلى معالي وزير.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Foreign Minister of Algeria. I thank the co-presidency of this conference. Algeria welcomes the convening of this conference, which is the fruit of an international consensus. This consensus is the main guarantor for a just, lasting, and final settlement to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This international consensus is a strong barrier against Israeli expansionist policies under the guise of the Greater Israel myth. This international consensus is the most powerful response to the illusions of the Israeli occupation and its belief that it alone holds the power to veto the establishment of the Palestinian state on the land of Palestine. It is time for concrete action to realize and enforce this consensus on several levels. The first level is expanding the base of official recognitions of the State of Palestine as an irreversible international reality. The second level is enabling the State of Palestine to obtain full membership in our organization. A membership that the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has consistently called for from this very rostrum. The third level is confronting diplomatically, legally, politically, and economically the plans of the occupation to annex Palestinian land and to displace the Palestinian people from their historic homeland. The fourth and final level is the internal Palestinian level. Palestinians have to close ranks and unify their word in order to regain their independence and for their movement to regain its strength and for their voice to regain its influence regionally and internationally. Thank you.
شكرا معالي الوزير.
I thank His Excellency and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Foreign Minister of the United Kingdom, and I would like to remind you once again that you have 2 minutes, after which the microphone will be cut off.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Your Excellencies, President Macron and Prince Faisal. I stand before you today beneath the emblem of the United Nations to confirm the historic decision of the British government to recognise the State of Palestine. This step, alongside friends and partners, reflects a long-standing truth that statehood is the inalienable right of the Palestinian people and that two states is the only path to security and lasting peace for Israelis and Palestinians alike. But it also reflects a grave reality. The two-state solution that for decades has commanded global support is in profound peril. From continued bloodshed, man-made famine, terrorism and hostage-taking, settlement expansion and settler violence. And Hamas terrorists continue to hold hostages seized in the barbaric attack of October 7th, prolonging the unimaginable anguish of their families. And in Gaza, the unbearable humanitarian catastrophe worsens as the Netanyahu government chooses to escalate war and hold back aid. Children dying of starvation while food rots at the border. And settlement expansion threatens the very viability of a Palestinian state. The two-state solution risks disappearing beneath the rubble. That is what extremists on all sides want, but we refuse to let hope be lost. Recognition is born of urgency and principle, alongside our unwavering support for the security of Israel and its people. This pathway is the opposite of Hamas's hateful vision, and this process around recognition has helped cement the rejection of Hamas across the Arab world, alongside new reforms to the Palestinian Authority, because there can be no role for Hamas in the future governance of Palestine. But recognition must be a spur, not a substitute for urgent action. A ceasefire now, the release of all hostages, the restoration of aid and a lasting framework for peace. Recognition is about the future, but it is rooted in our past. 75 years ago, Britain was rightly proud to recognise the State of Israel. But the promise of upholding Palestinian rights has gone unfulfilled. For decades, my country supported a two-state solution, but only recognised one state. That changes now, as we join more than 150 member states in recognising the State of Palestine and protecting the pathway to peace. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency, and I give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Mexico.
Señor Presidente.
Mr. President, Excellencies, we are all concerned by the grave crises in the Middle East. It requires urgent actions, and it's on all of our minds. Since our meeting in last July, we have seen confirmation of a famine in Gaza, and the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory has concluded that genocide has been committed in the Gaza Strip. There is an urgent need for collective actions which put an end to this heart-rending war. We need to see a just, peaceful and lasting arrangement based on the effective implementation of the two-state solutions. This should allow a safe and prosperous future for all countries in the region. The support for the New York Declaration issued by the General Assembly should lead to the establishment of political and security frameworks able to halt the humanitarian crisis. We must begin reconstruction and recovery work and guarantee the long-term security of both states. Mexico recognizes these steps taken by all mediating countries to immediately achieve a definitive ceasefire and the release of all hostages. It is our view that a just and lasting and peaceful solution based on international law must be supported by narratives, underpinned by narratives that humanize the problem, counter division, and promote the acceptance of the other. The microphone has been cut off.
Your Excellency, Mr. Minister, I would like to draw the attention of the Minister that his mic is no longer working. Gracias. Thank you, Excellency. والآن أعطي الكلمة.
And I give the floor to His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of Japan.
At the outset, I wish to express my profound respect and sincere appreciation to France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their leadership in convening this high-level conference. Together with Norway, we have had the honor of serving as co-chair of the working group on the economic viability of Palestine, engaging in sincere and constructive discussions with UN member states and international organizations. Urgent action is required to address the fiscal challenges facing the Palestinian Authority, sustained support for the PA, concerted engagement by the international community with Israel, and reforms undertaken by the PA itself. Japan continues to make tangible contributions, including recent financial assistance through the World Bank. Yet today, the situation has reached an extremely grave and alarming juncture that threatens to erode the very foundation of a two-state solution. The sharp deterioration of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the expansion of settlement activities in the West Bank, and steps toward annexations are completely unacceptable. Japan strongly condemns these actions and calls on Israel to immediately cease all such unilateral measures. At the same time, Hamas must release all hostages and disarm. Japan has consistently supported a two-state solution. For my country, the issue of recognizing a Palestinian state is not a matter of if, but of when. While carefully monitoring developments in the region, Japan will continue its comprehensive deliberations with even greater seriousness. Above all, what matters most is that Palestine can exist in a sustainable manner, living side by side in peace with Israel. Japan will continue to play a realistic and proactive role in advancing toward the goal of a two-state solution, even by a single step. Should Israel take further actions that block the path to the realization of a two-state solution, Japan will be compelled to introduce new measures in response. Japan fully supports the aspirations of the Palestinian people to establish their own independent state.
I would like to thank His Excellency and give the floor to His Excellency the Foreign Minister of Andorra.
Messieurs les Présidents, Excellences.
Presidents, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the situation in Gaza has become unbearable. Civilian victims, mostly women and children, run into the tens of thousands. Humanitarian access has been seriously hindered. Hunger is a weapon of war. Forced displacement has taken on outsized proportions. Faced with this human tragedy, we reiterate our call for an immediate ceasefire and the need to ensure a lasting end is put on this terrible conflict. The only credible path out of this conflict, ladies and gentlemen, is the two-state solution. The 12th September vote did not leave a shadow of a doubt. This assembly, by an overwhelming majority, believes that the Palestinian people should live in peace and security within their own state, side by side with the State of Israel. With this widely shared assessment in mind, the government of Andorra approved the recognition of Palestine. We will continue to forcefully call for the release of all hostages, for the disarmament of Hamas, the perpetrators of the atrocious 7th of October 2023 attacks, and for the advent of a Palestinian state that's been demilitarized and that exists under the reformed authority of a government that excludes Hamas. When the conditions are in place and if we can guarantee the full regional integration of Israel, this recognition will take its effect. With this recognition of Palestine, our country, which is proud of its over 7 centuries of uninterrupted peace and remains committed to neutrality, multilateralism. The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
À s'engager au
Your Excellency.
Bravo.
Okay, bravo.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I give the floor now to the Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia.
Your Excellencies, I would like to thank France and Saudi Arabia. A mutually agreed and sustainable two-state solution is the only viable path forward for peace in the Middle East. This cannot exist without a legitimate and capable Palestinian Authority, which requires reforms but also international support. We cannot allow the region to revert to an ineffective state that leaves a vacuum. It is for these reasons I signed a memorandum of understanding with Palestine last month. The horrifying images of starving children in Gaza are the outcome of deliberate choices. This is a man-made catastrophe. Gaza is enduring what international law defines as genocide. This demands clarity of words and urgency of action. When brute force replaces law, it will not bring security. It will bring instability and radicalization for generations. We insist that law must apply equally to the powerful as to the weak. Slovenia has acted
We recognize Palestine together with Ireland, Norway and Spain. We call for a permanent ceasefire, the release of all hostages and the protection of all civilians. We insist that humanitarian aid must flow into Gaza. We are at a turning point. We welcome the most recent recognitions and insist others must follow suit. History will not be kind to hesitation. It will not remember speeches that avoided difficult truths. It will unapologetically remember those who stood silent when genocide unfolded. Let this conference be remembered not as another echo chamber, but as the place where the international community finally moved from words to consequences. And
the speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I
thank Her Excellency and I give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Germany.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, across Gaza, people are living through hell on earth. Tens of thousands of people have died. Hundreds of thousands are starving. Colleagues, the horrendous terrorist attacks of October 7 and the most brutal war that followed have made it very clear. This decades-old conflict cannot be solved by terror, destruction and death. It can neither be won nor managed. It needs to be resolved. We are well aware that today a two-state solution appears more distant than ever. We are well aware that steps are being taken as we speak to bring it further out of reach. We are meeting today because we are convinced there can be a better future. An independent, democratic and viable Palestinian state existing side by side and in peace and in security with Israel. A negotiated two-state solution in accordance with international law, one to which no convincing alternative has been presented so far. Colleagues, to bring that future closer, Germany is guided by three principles. First, we do not and will not recognize any changes to the 1967 borders unless agreed upon both parties. Second, we consider Israeli settlements in the occupied territories unlawful and a serious obstacle to peace. And third, we respect the IGC's advisory opinion of 19th July 2024 and act in line with its stipulations. My country will always be deeply committed to Israel's existence, which is still being questioned by some. My country will always be committed to Israel's long-term security.
Microphone has been cut off.
Herr Minister. In German. Herr Minister. Herr Minister, Ihr Mikrofon ist ausgeschaltet. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. شكرا معالي الوزير والآن.
Thank you, Excellency. I now give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Denmark.
Thank you, President Macron and Prince Faisal bin Farhan, for your unwavering effort to push for momentum towards the two-state solution. Denmark has endorsed the New York Declaration and remained deeply committed to build on that momentum. Almost 2 years has passed since Hamas' appalling terrorist attack, and ever since Denmark has repeatedly condemned the attack, and we continue to insist on the immediate and safe release of every hostage. In the meanwhile, the war in Gaza has created a humanitarian catastrophe of unbearable scale, and Israel is expanding its military offensive. This needs to stop now. Israel needs to change course now. As an elected member of the Security Council, Denmark actively pushes for solutions, urging for an immediate ceasefire, release of hostages, unhindered humanitarian access. Today, the two-state solution is challenged by the war in Gaza, by Israel's direct opposition, expanding of illegal settlements, and threats to annex Gaza and the West Bank. This is why I say today, the keys to recognition of the Palestinian state should no longer lie in the hands of the Israeli government. The Palestinians themselves must be able to fulfill the conditions for the creation of a viable Palestinian state. The key must be in their hands. The Palestinians must become masters of their own destiny. Therefore, Denmark stands ready to recognize Palestine as a state when certain conditions are met. The Israeli hostages are released, when Hamas are disarmed and no longer plays a role in Gaza, when there has been further progress on the PA's reform agenda, and when there is certainty that a future Palestinian state will be demilitarized. In that spirit, we welcome the strong commitment by President Abbas regarding democratic reform and condemnation of Hamas, confirming that they can have no role in Gaza. Denmark has been at the forefront pushing for
The microphone has been cut off.
Your Excellency, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency, and I give the floor to His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of the Netherlands.
Your Excellencies, today we unite as international community to voice our support for the two-state solution. Allow me to thank France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for providing this opportunity. We must bring an end to this continuous cycle of violence and suffering that Palestinians and Israelis have for long endured. We have both the ability and the obligation to provide hope and a future to those who seek peace and reconciliation. The horrendous war in Gaza must end now, and the worrying tide in the West Bank must be turned. With this in mind, we put our signature under the New York Declaration. And with this in mind, we have taken and will take steps to preserve the two-state solution and alleviate the immense suffering of the people of Gaza. A full course correction is needed, and the steps the Netherlands takes at the national and European level should force Israel to change its course. A legitimate and democratic Palestinian Authority with full control of the Palestinian territories is critical for achieving a viable Palestinian state. Hamas can have no role in future governance, must release all hostages and lay down its arms, and any future solution must guarantee the security of Israel, as we remain fully aware of the intention of Hamas and its likes. The Netherlands will recognize the Palestinian state at a later stage as part of a political process that should commence now. In the meanwhile, we actively contribute, for example, through hosting the Global Alliance or through the Ad Hoc Liaison Committee, and all of the areas identified in the annex of the New York Declaration currently count on Dutch support. We must continue to build on the outcomes of this conference and maintain momentum. An independent Palestinian state alongside a secure Israel.
The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now give the floor to His Excellency, Minister of State of Qatar.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, Your Excellencies, I would like to express my appreciation to His Excellency, the President of France, and His Royal Highness of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their perception in convening this historic conference for the peaceful settlement of the Palestinian cause under the umbrella of the United Nations. This international movement comes in a very important context. First, a historic context of decades of injustice, occupying the territories of peoples who have been subjected under occupation, taking their land and living under complete destruction in Gaza. At the same time, the West Bank is subjected to reckless practices, annexing land, expanding settlement, and violating the holy sanctities. This is a dangerous threat to international peace and security and to the Middle East. This Israeli escalatory aggression came as a threat to so many countries in the region, including my country. Our capital, Doha, has been subjected to a treacherous Israeli aggression that violated its territorial integrity, led to the killing of 6 martyrs, and put the entire region to the brink of danger. This was a violation of international law and the UN Charter, and we believe that Israel is fully responsible for this rogue aggression, which was condemned by the Security Council and the United Nations. We have participated in the preparation of this conference to come up with a document that will be balanced to ensure the participation of all. Today, we must stress the establishment of a Palestinian statehood with sovereignty. The mic was cut off. Thank you, Your Excellency. I would like to thank you, Your Excellency, and give the floor to His Excellency, the Minister of State in the UAE. Your Excellency, the President Emmanuel Macron, Your Highness Prince Faisal bin Farhan, Excellencies, at the outset, I would like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the French Republic for their concerted effort to organize this conference and the adoption of the New York Declaration by an overwhelming majority at the General Assembly. This would lead to the establishment of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state living in peace and security alongside the State of Israel. We welcome the growing international recognition of the State of Palestine. We call upon the states that have not yet recognized the State of Palestine to do so. In light with the dangerous developments unfolding in the Gaza Strip and the ongoing threats to annex the West Bank and other serious and unacceptable violations, it's imperative that we intensify our efforts to achieve an immediate and lasting ceasefire, release all hostages and detainees, and guarantee full, unconditional humanitarian access across the entire Strip. We have to support the mediation efforts by Egypt, Qatar, and the USA. We call upon the Security Council to uphold its legal and moral responsibilities by taking measures to deter Israel and stop its violations in the occupied Palestinian territories and acts of aggression across the region. We caution that this would have grave risks to regional and international security and peace. The achievement of lasting peace hinges on creating a clear political horizon to establish an independent Palestinian state. It's important to have a legitimate, capable Palestinian national authority that can control arms and be accountable. To conclude, Mr. President, let's pave the way for a lasting, just and comprehensive peace that fulfills the aspirations of the peoples of the region. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, and I give the floor to the Vice President of the Vice Prime Minister of Russia.
Distinguished co-chairs, ladies and gentlemen, what's happening in the Middle East has exceeded all thinkable and unthinkable limits over the last 3 years. We've seen an uptick in the terrorist threat, aggressive attacks on sovereignty and the territorial integrity of states, violations of the UN Charter, as well as attacks on sites under AEA safeguards. Before our very eyes, we have seen hunger, man-made hunger. We're seeing queues, people queuing for foodstuffs. 50,000 people, children have died, and many children are suffering from malnutrition. According to the OCHA representative, the city of Gaza has been handed down a death sentence. The Israeli leadership has announced it will be annexing a large portion of the West Bank, building up E1, that sector, and thus doing a blow to the establishment of a continuous state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital. Palestinians are being subjected to unspeakable suffering, as well as having their hopes for a better future taken away from them. And this at a time when we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II and the establishment of the UN. Many states promised the recognition of Palestine some time ago, and today they made good on that promise. They did this 80 years after the adoption of a key decision, Resolution 181 of the UNGA, with the partition plan of former Mandate Palestine into two states. I'd like to remind you that Russia, much like the overwhelming majority of the world's states, 149 states, long ago recognized the legitimate rights of Palestinians to return to their own state. And we did this without waiting for this current human tragedy. The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for this statement, and I give the floor to His Excellency, the Secretary General of the League of Arab States. Your Excellency, we face an extraordinary moment by all standards and means, while the Israeli occupation is seeking now to bury the project of the Palestinian state on the streets of Gaza. We see the representatives of the overwhelming majority of the countries of the world and at highest levels to save this project. We are here today not to save the Palestinian state only, but to also save some of our common humanity. I would like to remind everyone that the state of Israel was established through a UN resolution, and the the states recognizing Israel had the biggest impact on the fact that it was established and given legitimacy. The UN resolutions stipulated the establishment of Palestinian state to be established alongside Israel, but this state did not see the light of day for several reasons. We have a duty, this important duty, to make this conference a major milestone on a path that is important and a road that is irreversible towards implementing the two-state solution, and for the states to recognize the Palestinian state today. They should also have the duty of protecting Palestinians against systematic killing and the Palestinians against punitive measures that undermine future opportunities and bring us backwards. Thank you, Mr. President. I thank you, Your Excellency, for this statement. This would be our last speaker for this afternoon. The fifth plenary meeting is hereby resumed. I now invite my fellow co-chair to make his statements.
Vous remercier, chef d'État et de gouvernement.
I wish to thank you, heads of state and government, ministers, foreign affairs and official representatives, for having participated in this historic conference on the margins of the UN General Assembly. The conference has allowed us to take note of the significant progress that has been made since the conference last July, and we must not and we will not stop here. This collective effort is vital and must continue in the next few weeks if we are to rise to the major challenge of transforming transforming a hopeless ongoing war into a reality of peace and security, which stands the test of time. Time is marching on, given the extremely grave nature of the situation and the collective suffering of civilians. The dynamic we've ushered in today must be followed by rigorous work on Palestine's tomorrow. The Palestinian Authority must be reformed. There must be the laying down of arms, Hamas excluded from government, and other things. This will, if we move forward in this way, there will be able to be a sovereign, independent Palestine state alongside Israel, guaranteeing everyone's security. As we chart this course, our only adversaries are extremism and hatred. Let us give them no ground whatsoever. Ours is the duty to stop Israeli and Palestinians from getting bogged down in an infinite spiral of violence. As the President of the Republic said, time has come for peace. Thank you.
Allow me to make some concluding remarks. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia expresses its appreciation to all countries that have announced their recognition of the State of Palestine and its deep appreciation of President Mahmoud Abbas for his unwavering commitment to peace. These recognitions today are not symbolic but reflect a will and a responsibility in fulfilling the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and decisive action towards ending occupation and make the two-state solution a reality that is irreversible. Based on what we have witnessed today and this growing consensus, international consensus, we will continue to work with all our partners in order to end the Israeli aggression and ensure accountability, achieve sustainable peace and prosperity for Palestinians and all countries in the region. We also thank our partners, the Republic of France, for their constructive efforts and genuine efforts to support the peace and the path of peace. I therefore conclude and we come to the end of the conference for the peaceful settlement of the Palestinian question and the implementation of the two-state solution. The meeting is adjourned.
Congratulations.
To work on ending the conflict in the region and establish a Palestinian independent state on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. In conclusion, we thank again those countries that have recognized or have announced their intention to recognize the State of Palestine. We call all other countries to take a similar historic step that will have a great impact on supporting the efforts towards the implementation of the two-state solution, achieve permanent and comprehensive peace in the Middle East, and find a new reality whereby the region can enjoy peace, stability, and prosperity. Thank you.
I thank His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman Abdulaziz Al Saud. I now invite His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, to issue a statement.
Distinguished co-chairs, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the Government of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening this international conference on implementing the two-state solution. I also want to acknowledge the Palestinian delegation and once again note my disappointment that they were denied the opportunity to be fully represented. Excellencies, let's have no illusions. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has gone unresolved for generations. Dialogue has faltered. Resolutions have been flouted.
International law has been breached. Decades of diplomacy have come up short. The situation is intolerable and it is deteriorating by the hour. We are here today to help navigate the only way out of this nightmare, a two-state solution where two independent, sovereign, democratic states, Israel and Palestine, live side by side in peace and security with their secure and recognized borders on the basis of pre-1967 lines, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states, in line with international law, UN resolutions and other relevant agreements. I welcome the measures many member states are taking to galvanize support for the two-state solution, including the pledges to recognize the state of Palestine. And I welcome the General Assembly's endorsement of the New York Declaration. Excellencies, nothing can justify the horrific 7 October terror attacks by Hamas or the taking of hostages, both of which I have repeatedly condemned. And nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people or any form of ethnic cleansing. The systematic decimation of Gaza, the starvation of the population, the killing of tens of thousands of civilians, most of them women and children, and hundreds of our own humanitarians. I call once again for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, and the immediate, full, safe, unconditional, and unhindered humanitarian access. Excellencies, nothing can also excuse developments in the West Bank that pose an existential threat to a two-state solution. The relentless expansion of settlements, the creeping threat of annexation, the intensification of settler violence, all of it must stop. The situation is morally, legally, and politically intolerable. We must recommit ourselves to the two-state solution before it is too late. A solution in which two independent, contiguous, democratic, viable, and sovereign states are mutually recognized and fully integrated into the international community. Excellencies, those who stand in the way are obligated to answer a fundamental question. What is the alternative? A one-state scenario where Palestinians are denied basic rights, expelled from their homes and their land, forced to live under perpetual occupation, discrimination, and subjugation? How is this possible in the 21st century? How is it acceptable? This is neither peace nor justice. It will only increase the growing isolation of Israel on the global stage. And let's be clear, statehood for the Palestinians is a right, not a reward. And denying statehood would be a gift to extremists everywhere. Without two states, there will be no peace in the Middle East, and radicalism will spread around the world.
Excellencies, this conference must mark a turning point. It must pave the way for irreversible progress to put an end to the illegal occupation and to make good on our collective aspiration for a two-state solution. All of this is fully in line with adherence to international law. It has been approved by the General Assembly and supported by the international community. It is the only credible path towards a just and lasting peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and the only credible path towards peace and security throughout the Middle East as a whole. This will demand difficult decisions be taken from us all. This will demand courage and leadership based on principles from all sides. I urge you to do everything in your power to allow the two two-state solution to prevail. This for the peoples of Israel, Palestine, and for humankind as a whole. I thank you. I thank the Secretary General of the United Nations Organization. I now invite Her Excellency Annalena Baerbock, President of the General Assembly, to make a statement.
Your Excellency President Emmanuel Macron, Your Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Your Highness Prince Faisal bin Farhan, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies. Taking over the presidency of the General Assembly, I received many letters. One moved me deeply. Attached to it were drawings by 3 Palestinian children, Remas, Enas and Retal. The images were heartbreaking. One showed a school before and after, beneath a bright sun and a blue, clear sky. In the first, the school with open doors and happiness. In the second, their school lies in rubble. A lone boy stands on the debris of what must be once have been his safe place. Perhaps he had a favorite class, a favorite teacher like our children, a best friend he played with there. Now, all of it is gone. All of the laughter of the children blown away. At that age, children should not be drawing pictures of war. Children should be learning mathematics. They should be playing with friends and scratch dragons or castles, not death and destruction. Yet for the children of Gaza, this is their reality. Their horror lasted and lasts for over 700 days. Tens of thousands have lost their lives. Tens of thousands of dreams which never will come true. So many killed without the world even learning their names. Until we heard one voice so loud we could not overhear it. The voice of Hind Rajab, captured in a phone call with a red crescent while shelling rained down. After the car she was in was attacked, over and over again, killing her aunt, uncle, and 3 of her cousins next to her. She called over and over again, "I'm so scared, please come." The rescuers tried to calm her as they tried to reach her. They could not. Hind was killed before help arrived. The world failed her. As the world has also failed Abbas and his brother Ayel. Kvir was just 9 months old. The youngest child abducted by Hamas on October 7th, taken with his 4-year-old brother Ayel and their mother, loved ones to come home from wherever Hamas is holding them after more than 700 days. I've also met with Palestinian families, fathers, mothers, siblings, aunts and grandparents whose loved ones are buried in the ruins of Gaza. Their message is always the same: we want peace. Or as one Israeli mother told me, it does not bring my child back if a Palestinian mother loses her child in Gaza. Humanity is not about choosing sides. It's about recognizing that every life matters the same. A life is a life. A Palestinian girl's life is a life. An Israeli boy's life is a life. All the children of the Middle East deserve to grow up knowing only the sun shining on their schools, the laughter of their friends in the playground, and the joy of a meal shared with their families. Not the horrors of starvation, not the horrors of war and terror. Excellencies, the General Assembly has been very clear. We need an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire in Gaza now. Israel must immediately facilitate the full, rapid, safe and unhindered entry and delivery of humanitarian assistance to all Palestinian civilians. Hamas must immediately and unconditionally release all remaining hostages. But the horrors of Gaza make equally clear that we cannot allow such devastation to happen again. While the situation in Gaza is unacceptable, settlement expansions and demolitions in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, are eroding any prospects for a political solution. The decade-long Israeli-Palestinian conflict cannot be resolved by endless war, permanent occupation and recurrent terror. The only way to ensure that future generations of both Palestinians and Israelis can live in peace, security and dignity is the two-state solution. As the Secretary General said, it's a right, not a reward, to live in your own state, as all humans around the world. We know that some think this is naive. The first resolution on this matter is almost as old as this organization. 78 years ago, the General Assembly adopted Resolution 181, laying the foundation for two states, knowing it's the only way for peace. And to those of you who argue now, but we have tried for decades and failed over and over again, there can be only one answer. If we would stop aiming for what is right because we have not succeeded yet, then evil would prevail. That would be the end of this institution. This institution which promised to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. It would erode the UN's foundational mission to achieve peace, justice and equal rights for both Israelis and Palestinians. Excellencies, that is what today's conference and the New York Declaration are so crucial. The message we are sending today is no, we are not giving up. The international community does not only remain committed to the two-state solution, we are also identifying tangible, time-bound and irreversible steps for its realization. And we are willing to take decisive measures and provide international guarantees. Of course, this conference and the New York Declaration will face criticism. Some will say a piece of paper cannot change realities on the grounds for Palestinians. Others will dismiss the vision of two states outright. But the fact remains, the New York Declaration was endorsed by 142 member states. And this majority clearly says the war in Gaza must end now. It condemns the attacks committed by Hamas against civilians on 7th of October. It condemns the attacks by Israel against civilians and civilian infrastructure in Gaza. It calls on Hamas to end its rule in Gaza and hand over its weapons. A sovereign and viable state of Palestine needs to be established, living side by side with the state of Israel in peace and security, with mutually recognized borders and full regional integration. Excellencies, the call for peace and the two-state solution is not an abstract. Not for the children watching missiles destroy their school. Not for the families waiting for news that their sons and daughters might be released from captivity. Not for the UN staff in Gaza who have witnessed their colleagues shot. Not for those who have been injured or maimed and will have to live with the trauma of this conflict for the rest of their life. It's an aspiration, but it's also an obligation. We owe it to the memory of Fint, Kriya and Ariel and the many, many others. And we owe it to the children like Remas, Enas and Rital, and all the children of Palestine and all the children of Israel, hoping for a better tomorrow, so that they may not inherit rubble, grief and despair, but safety, dignity and hope, to live one day in peace, side by side.